Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Ratitude Podcast. As oftentimes happen, like every single time, I have a beautiful, brilliant guest once again, and she's a new friend of mine. She actually cooked dinner for us because she is the owner and founder of the Medicinal Gourmet here in Naples, Florida. And she's part of the Dr. Joe Dispenza world, and that's how we connected. And she cooked us a beautiful, beautiful meal last night, and I invited her to be a guest on the podcast to talk a little bit about that. And just, she's got an interesting story, and I love stories that people can share with us. So Shelly, welcome, first of all, to the Ratitude Podcast. It's an honor and pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Likewise.
So let's get started here. You told me yesterday that you've been here in Naples for, I believe, 22 years. So where did you come from? Like, how did you develop? What's your start? What's your the beginning of your story on how you became the gourmet chef of Naples?
Thank you so much. So yes, I arrived here in Naples in December of 2004. I moved here with my mother, Betty, from Philadelphia. And back then, I was in the world of domestic and international marketing. That was what I had studied in university, and I was very much enjoying myself. And we can fast forward to the end of 2011, a couple of months prior to me giving birth to my dynamic and amazing daughter, Lily. I decided to step back out of the business world, really shut down my business and just focus on the connection with my daughter and raising her. So I did that for 6 years. And then in the beginning of 2018, I decided that I really wanted to live a life that was filled with purpose. And I wanted to have positive impacts on my community. And lucky for me, I have some very supportive individuals in my life, family, friends, and they all said to me, Shelly, you have a gift. You really cook yummy, delicious, healthy food. Why don't you do something with that? And so I sat with it for a little bit, and it felt really good to me. So I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So I just very simply developed a little business plan, and I began marketing myself just through networking, just through talking to like-minded and like-spirited folks in this community who I've known for many years. And I had some business cards printed up, and I started giving them out. And that's really how I began.
You're an international marketer. How did you develop your cooking skills? Did you go to school? Did you have a grandmother or mother that taught you? Like, how did that process come about?
Completely self-taught. Yes. So it was my own desire when my daughter was born to learn how to really create delicious, healthy foods and meals that heal completely from scratch. So think of techniques, that indeed grandparents and great-grandparents would have learned and then shared with younger generations. So that's exactly what I did. A tremendous amount of trial and error and a lot of tenacity to just keep plowing forward and trusting the process. And that's exactly what I did. So I began doing that in the beginning of 2012. So I had 6 years of, just like I said, a lot of trial and error, working with different cuisines, different flavor profiles, and different techniques. So that's what I did.
Yeah. So you said foods to heal. Was there something going on that needed to be healed?
Thank you for asking that question. Yes. So when I was about 23 years old, a year after graduating from university, I was given a pretty difficult diagnosis. I was told by a gastroenterologist that I was suffering from something called Crohn's disease, which is a form of inflammatory bowel disease. And when I asked him, what's the path? It wasn't very inspiring. It was pharmaceutical medication. It was the possibility of multiple surgeries moving forward and having sections of my digestive tract cut out and resewn. And so I decided to use that as a catalyst of my own research. And I began exploring, reading as much as I could about holistic health and healing and nutrition and the role that that plays in our everyday lives as far as our health is concerned. So I began experimenting with lots of different herbs, tinctures, minerals, vitamins, and obviously the food itself, a process of elimination in order to find out what causes me to feel inflamed and unwell. I had been studying at this point now, I would say that I feel like I have a PhD in nutrition, although I don't have a piece of paper hanging on a wall. 20 years worth of my own research, and I'm constantly keeping up because the information that comes out is always evolving.
It's so interesting that I don't know if this is true or not, but it sure seems that a lot of people have various kinds of inflammation, illnesses, diseases, afflictions, whatever you call them. I don't know if it's because of the foods, the processed foods that have become prevalent in, particularly in Western society. Even when I was coaching at both at the high school and college level, these kids are having these illnesses and diseases that some of them I've never heard of, the symptoms I've never heard of. I'm just, from my generation, just go out there and run. What do you mean you can't run because of blah, 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 blah? Is that your experience? I mean, or do you even know why or how some of these things happen?
I believe that a lot of it has to do with exactly what you touched upon, Robert, is the prevalence of processed foods, and especially genetically modified organisms. The effect that they have, they literally change our DNA. And it has been proven. There are certain industries that don't want us to talk about this. And I think that that's really doing humans a disservice, and it lacks compassion and understanding and caring, because people have all these mystery illnesses. Doesn't matter if it's diabetes or if it's inflammatory bowel disease or it's cardiovascular disease. It all stems from our DNA that is really being altered. And a large portion of that has to do with the food supply, especially.
Yeah. I know for myself, I every year it seems like I get more and more interested and kind of committed to a healthier lifestyle. And then, things happen in life that kind of push you and force you to go even further. And I'm at a stage now where I really, really want to make some huge changes. I don't know if I have inflammation or not, but for many years, I didn't really even like eating food. I mean, I liked it, but it wasn't a big deal. It was more like fuel. Then all of a sudden in kind of my middle ages, all of a sudden I really started liking food and eating too much and eating the stuff that I shouldn't be eating. I mean, I thought they were good, pizza and McDonald's. Ooh, people are going to get mad at that one, but I love McDonald's. And just kind of recently, and that's how we connected, I made this commitment to just eat a lot healthier, and that I used to be able to get away with this because I always said I could go eat 2 Big Macs, a large fry, and Coke and go run 10 miles. Well, I can still do that, but it's really slow. And I'm finding myself going like, this sucks. I like running fast. I don't like running slow. Now you're in really, really good shape. I mean, I didn't meet you till yesterday, but boy, you look like one of my distance runners. Do you run?
I used to. So I ran track and field. I began at the age of 12 when I began middle school in Philadelphia. And interestingly enough, the coach was trying to figure out, obviously, where would I shine? Because that's what a really good coach does, right? They look at their individual athletes and they figure out, where can I plug this person in order to really increase our performance. He found that I did the best at the running long jump because I ran and I jumped 14 feet out into the sand pit. So that was my designation.
Okay. I would have made you a distance runner.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I was much better at short distances. I guess it just had something to do with where my endurance was when I was 12 and 13 and 14 years old. I really enjoyed I really enjoyed it. And prior to that, I was a gymnast.
Okay. Yeah, you look like a gymnast too. How about your daughter? How old's your daughter?
So
Lily?
Lily is now 12 and a half. She just began
Okay.
7th grade here at North Naples Middle
Okay.
School. And
Okay.
she is starting today cross country.
Oh, wow. The greatest sport ever.
Yeah. So the timing is perfect for
Yeah,
our conversation.
they have cross country in 7th grade.
They do. It actually begins in 6th grade at North Naples Middle
Wow.
School. Yes.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, if you ever want to talk about that, I'm happy to talk with you.
Thank you.
But yeah, so you're here in Naples, and then you tell me at the last day of school you take off. What's that all about?
So I have created a life for myself and for my daughter where I have found it's all about balance. So I work really hard for 6, 7 months out of the year. And then that affords us the opportunity and possibility to get out of town for the summer and to experience different flora, fauna, different temperatures, different cultures, different foods all over. So yes, my daughter and I, we took a superb road trip this summer where we drove up to New England and then Western New York and Canada, did some volunteering on a couple of organic homesteads. Just that is a way that I really like to give back. And it also affords me the opportunity to learn new skills in gardening and in homesteading, which then I can come home and apply to our lives here and also help clients. Because in addition to the cooking, I also offer regenerative food coaching and education. So every little bit of information that is hands-on experience, I can then come home and share that with my clients and teach them how they can easily apply these methods to their lives.
So you're quite the nature girl. You were telling me about some of your volunteer and it's being in nature. Where does that come from, and how does that fit into your life? Like, what's your spiritual practices? What's your grounding? You know, I'm into the Joe Dispenza, nature, all these kinds of things, far away from my chemical engineering background.
Wow.
But what's your spiritual practices? What's your kind of beliefs around nature? And is it more than just looking at trees and birds, or is it emotional? Is it soulful? Is it spiritual for you?
It is. It's all of the above. So for me, I love the quote from John Muir where he said, "I go into the forest to lose my mind and to find my soul." That is a perfect depiction of how I live my life. So I begin my mornings with breath work, and that helps to ground me into the energetic frequencies of the earth. And then I follow that with just some silence and some meditation. And then I roll into a little bit of yoga and just gentle stretching, just to kind of wake my body up, right, for the day.
And what kind of breath work do you do?
Thank you. I love the question. So the breath work that I do, sometimes I'm looking for a bit more of an energized breath work, which would be more breath of fire, where we pump our stomach inward and it's more of an exhale through the nose.
Can you demonstrate?
Of course. So we would close our mouths down and we'd put a big smile in our hearts and on our faces. And then we would just continuously exhale through the nose in short, like exhalative pumps.
Mm-hmm. Audience, do this with us.
Yes.
That's a breath of fire.
Yes. And just even after 10, 15 seconds of doing it, I feel much more alert and even joyful. It feels so good, like I can feel the energy running through my body. And then for a more grounding and calming breath, it would be, the deep belly breathing where you inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and then exhale for a minimum of 4 seconds.
So for people that don't know what belly breathing is, and I discovered it when I was coaching actually, and that when we're first born as a child, we belly breathe, and then over time we forget, we inverse breathe. Can you explain that to our audience, what belly breathing is?
Absolutely. So belly breathing is really diaphragmatic breathing. Everything, if we visualize, then it helps us on the physical plane to actually do it. So think of filling your belly out like a balloon. And sometimes it helps if we make contact with our hands onto our bellies. And then we slowly inhale, and you can first feel the belly expand, and then you can feel it going up into the diaphragm as well, and that expands out. And then finally, there's just this minimal lift in the chest, and that's belly breathing. And then when we exhale, first the chest comes down, then the diaphragm and the rib cage, and then finally the belly kind of empties out, and you feel like it's pushed up against like your spine, and it just empties out. And it's a very slow and calming and grounding form of breathing. And that a person can do at any moment if they're feeling overwhelmed or anxious, and they just need to come back into alignment with themselves and kind of get out of the mind chatter. I find that one is extremely beneficial.
So if you were to give some advice to our audience that might be listening, what kind of advice around nutrition, what kind of tips might you have?
The first thing that I always share with people is see food as medicine. So we are what we eat. And I think that if we can actually sit with that for a moment, a light goes off. And like you were saying before, how you could eat pizza or McDonald's and still run. Now, if you were to think about that, you would say, is there anything else that I could offer my temple, which is our body? What else can I offer my temple that would be pleasing to the taste buds and yet also very nutritious, so that the body continues to function at a high capacity of health and wellness? So that is the first thing, is it's a shift in mindset.
So obviously that's where the name of your company came from, the Medicinal Gourmet.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
So because food, people think of gourmet food and that it's heavy. And yes, sometimes it can be, but it doesn't have to be. It can be medicinally gourmet, where it is all made from scratch with a plethora of different flavor profiles and nutritionally uplifting and supportive for a longer and healthier life.
Do you recommend people have 2 or 3 meals per day or 5 meals? Is there any recommendations, or is it more customized than that for people?
It is 100% customized, because what would work for you, Robert, might not work for me. And so therefore we can't make that assumption. We all have very individual and unique needs. And with nutrition, it's the same. So the first thing I do is I always, when I speak with a prospective client, I offer them anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes of a complimentary consultation where I will probe you and I will ask some very deep questions so that I can best understand what are your nutritional needs, what are your goals, so that I can best meet them. So in that sense, after I go through a whole slew of questions and I'm feverishly writing down all the answers, then it becomes also a balance of teaching my clients to eat more intuitively. So instead of looking at the clock and, oh, what time is it? I should be eating now. No, just check in with your body and ask your body, Are you hungry right now? Do you need some sustenance? Or are we okay? Are we feeling good? And depending on how the body responds, that's then how we would proceed, either with eating or with not eating. So it really is a practice of intuitive eating.
Yeah, I love that. Now, if for the normal person that doesn't know a lot about nutrition, are there some like superfoods or some recommended foods that you'd say you ought to consider this or try this or incorporate that in some way into your body? Just for people that might be listening that are going like, I wonder what I could add in. So Miss Gourmet, Medicinal Gourmet Chef Extraordinaire, what would you recommend to people to try to put into their own nutritional days?
I would recommend that people familiarize themselves with more fruits, specifically fruits that are sweeter. And oftentimes when I first suggest this, I get some pushback because there's a lot of fruit fear, especially in this country, because over the last 15 plus years, a lot of holistic nutritionists and food coaches have been sharing information which has caused people's fruit fear to shoot up exponentially surrounding sugar. Now, there's a very big difference between processed sugar, whether it's white sugar, brown sugar, sugar alternatives, which need to be avoided at all costs. And there's a big difference between naturally occurring glucose and fructose in fruits, such as mangoes, pineapples. I'm thinking of really like sweet fruit right now, bananas. The brain doesn't just run on fat. There's this big movement of keto and bariatric type eating. I did that as an experiment a number of years ago. And what happened after a couple of years of me eating a diet that was higher in fat, and I'm talking healthy fats like avocado oil, coconut oil, but just cooking a lot of the food in these fats, even like organic grass-fed ghee butter. Well, after a couple of years, my liver became overloaded. The liver is one of the most important organs in our body. It is responsible for over 2,000 daily functions. And when our liver has to process so much fat, even if it's healthy fat, other organs then need to compensate for the liver's extraneous work that then other organs start to lose their life force. And then people start having things like cardiovascular disease and diabetes. And it has everything to do with an overloaded liver. So therefore, I now had to reverse that damage to my own liver. And I was mentored by a phenomenal restorative physician in Manhattan for over 3 years. And she taught me, she said, Shelly, come on, I want to take you under my wing. I want you to teach people all of this and how they can really step powerfully into their own health sovereignty and implement these things gently, easily, on a daily basis. And so she taught me first thing in the morning, 12 ounces of room temperature water with a full lemon or lime squeezed into it. Why? Because lemon or lime infused room temperature water in the morning helps the liver to continue to purge because it does so every morning from 4 to 7 a.m. So if the first thing we do is give it this like supportive, super hydrating, cleansing beverage, it just helps it to continue to purge even more. And then after that, I would wait about 20 to 30 minutes, and then I would juice a whole head of organic celery. Celery juice is like the cure-all for so many modern day mystery illnesses. It is incredible. And so spreading the word about that the last 6+ years has been such a joy for me. And we start small, right? You don't start with a big bunch. You start with 4 ounces, a half a cup, right? Baby steps so that we don't feel overwhelmed, and also so that we don't detox too quickly and feel unwell.
Okay, so you said a couple of things in the middle that I want to ask you about, because I love cold water. And when you told me room temperature water, I go like, oh, I don't really like that. Like, what's the justification for me to switch from cold water to room temperature water?
So it has to do with, number one, the way that cold water affects your entire digestive tract from your esophagus all the way down to your colon. So think of anything cold as being preserved and kind of becomes smaller, right? We put things in the freezer. Yes, in order to extend its shelf life, but also what happens when things get really cold? They contract. And when things are of a room temperature and warmer, what happens with warmth? Things expand. So we want our capillary system to expand. We want the blood vessels to expand. We want the detoxification channels to open. So therefore, room temperature water will allow this to happen much more easily than cold water.
Okay, you convinced me. You convinced me.
Yay!
I've been going half and half. The celery juice thing. So that's a big part of the Tony Robbins Life and Wealth Mastery. And so I came back from there and I bought the big old juicer and I went and got organic celery and made these big glasses of celery, and I would like drink it down and make faces. And is there anything that I can do to make celery taste better for me? Because I think it's putrid.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So here's the thing. So with the celery juice, what I always tell people when they're first starting out is this. The goal is to drink the celery juice as a single ingredient, fresh pressed juice, because that is where we get the most detoxification and regenerative components.
You mean I can't have like a shot and then follow it up with a can of Coke?
You can, but
that.
you're not going to get the medicinal properties, my dear.
I did not do that.
I know, I'm teasing. Therefore, when people are first starting out with, let's say, the 4 ounces of the fresh pressed organic celery juice, I tell them, take a half an apple or 1 small carrot and run that through your juicer as well. That way you ease into the really stronger flavors of just celery juice on its own. So it's gradual. We want people to succeed. It's about meeting people where they are. And I really think that requires compassion. So gently easing people into it so that they also don't throw it away and say, I'm not doing this, right?
Yeah. So are there some foods that we should not have, that we should go into our kitchen and find those and toss them?
That's a very good question. And so in my humble opinion and in all of my training and mentoring that I've gone through, I would say that the number one thing to go through is your pantry. That's where all the processed foods hide. Let's start there. No one's saying, oh my gosh, you have to buy everything organic. That's not maybe possible for everybody. But here's what does make it more possible is if we shop the perimeter of the supermarket. Doesn't matter if it's Whole Foods, if it's Trader Joe's, if it's your local chain, if it's a local mom and pop store that you're supporting. If we focus our attention more on the perimeter, we're going to go through the produce section first. And then we might go through the fish section and the meats and fresh baked sourdough bread in the bakery section as well. And then we're minimizing our time in the processed food sections, which actually comprise the majority of the grocery store, sadly. So, yes, the first thing would be go through your pantries, read the ingredients. Are there funny words like natural flavors that we don't really know what they mean?
Natural flavor sounds good to me.
I know it sounds good. And unfortunately, in the United States, there are no real parameters as to what that means. And that can encompass things like MSG, monosodium glutamate. Food companies are no longer required to actually write the words monosodium glutamate. They now fall under the umbrella of natural flavors. And MSG, what it does is it tricks our brain into thinking that we want more of what we're presently eating. And therefore we eat more, we consume more of that unhealthy food.
That's interesting. There's so much to learn and to know about nutrition, really. And, the sooner it seems, the sooner we get that in life, the better it is. I think with women and moms, there's more of an incentive, a desire. I think for men, and this is being stereotypically, we probably do less of that. We like to go to the football game or baseball game and have a hot dog and a beer and a Coke or a beer. It maybe takes something else happening in people's lives to kind of wake up. But it's never too late, is it?
Never. Of course not. The only time we have is now, right, Robert? So anything now is perfect divine timing.
Right now, you're in this process. You've got your daughter. You've got your Medicinal Gourmet business. What's your future look like? What are your dreams? What are your bucket list things of life? What do you want to eventually accomplish?
Oh my gosh. So my dream is to continue to have a positive impact on people's lives with regards to their health, shifting their mindsets by implementing small, easily doable, just little tweaks every day, and really reaching more people, because the more people that we help, the more people they can then help and then pay that forward. It's really beautiful that if I help one person, that person can then turn around and shift a perspective and life of another person that they love and care about, just with small actions. That's a big part of it for me. And then also continuing to immerse myself in the education aspect, because look, I can't be a private chef for every person that reaches out to me. I do have to decline people from time to time. And so then I say to them, look, I can't cook for you, but what I can do is customize recipes for you that are easy, that are whole foods, that are going to help regenerate and activate your cells to stay younger. So let's put together some recipes for you that you can then produce at home. And you can put your kids in the kitchen with you. You can put your partner with you. And if you don't have either, then you just turn on some music and you go at it and you have fun.
We have a worldwide audience here on the Ratitude podcast, which I just learned last week that our show is the number 11 health and fitness category YouTube program in Argentina, of all places. And we're highly rated in Romania, of all places. I'm just amazed. So we've got to reach out there. If people wanted to reach out to you, you're here in Naples, so you're not going to be a private cook for someone in Argentina or Romania or maybe some other places. Do you do consulting? Do you post recipes? Do you do a podcast? Do you have webinars? How can people find out most easily and the best from you about what to do to better their own health in a medicinal way?
Thank you. So presently, the best way that people can reach me worldwide would be through my website, which is www.medicinal medicinalgourmet.com. And they can familiarize themselves with my offerings. They can go through the different services. They can read numerous testimonials. They can look through the colorful and mouth-watering photo gallery of some of my food options. And then they can reach out to me very easily through the website, via email, Shelly, Shelly, at medicinalgourmet.com. And they can schedule their complimentary consultation, and where I'll spend 30 to 60 minutes speaking with them, asking them some inspiring and thought-provoking questions. Then I let them guide the ship always.
And I can attest that I had the complimentary 30-minute session that lasted about an hour and 15 minutes or so. And but I've learned so much. I think Shelly is brilliant. She is truly a medicinal gourmet, and I encourage all my audience members to check out her website. It'll be when we post this podcast, it'll be there along with her contact information. And Shelly, if there's any kind of last pieces of advice that you can leave our audience with as we close up here, what would that be? You've already shared so many good things.
The one thing that I like to share with people the most is practice as much self-love, self-care, and self-compassion as possible. And if you think not more is possible, break through that, because it is. Because when we take care of ourselves, we can show up in the world as the highest versions of ourselves, and then we can offer that out into the world and really bless people.
Shelly, you're a beautiful soul. Thank you for being on our podcast here and sharing your wisdom. And I hope that some members of our audience do reach out to you, and for others that you take the challenge and that you treat your foods as medicine and help spread love and good health and good vibes in the world. Shelly, thank you so much for being here.
Robert, thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure.